Today, I'm going to show you how to build a company assistant that's filled with your company docs and history. And it allows your employees to ask questions and your leadership team to ask some confidential questions. And there's no risk of data breaches between the tiers, and it all happens within Slack. So when a junior level employee asks a questions about a specific process, it delivers an answer within 10 seconds. But if the same employee asks about something confidential like client history or budgets, it declines politely. Whereas when someone in a leadership role asks the same question, they get the full answer. This maintains access level security, which is crucial in business operations. So here's why this matters. If you run a business, you know the pain of answering repetitive employee questions and the hassle onboarding new employee takes. You also know the frustration of finding relevant data in a database with hundreds of files. This might be costing you more than 3 hours per week, and more importantly, a loss of productivity across your team. So by the end of this video, you'll be able to build a similar AI system for yourself. I've left the link to the workflow in the description, so you don't have to start from scratch. So let's dive right in. So here's what we'll be building today. We'll be building a 2-tier company knowledge system. On one side, your junior level staff, they get instant access to the policies, SOPs, and onboarding docs. And on the other side, your directors and managers, they can query something that's confidential, like budgets, project details, or other financials. So the main concept of this AI system is that it enforces access control. So a junior level employee can't access something that's confidential. So if they ask something that's confidential, like the budget or something like that, they do not get the answer to it. Whereas when the directors or executives ask the same questions, they do get answers to that question. So for the tech stack, mainly we are using n8n. Think of n8n as a software that allows you to connect various other softwares, and you can design it in such a way that it acts according to your needs. And for storage, we're using Drive. So this is where we'll be pulling all the company documents from, and it will be storing it in a database called Supabase. And for generating AI responses, we're using OpenAI. And finally, as a mode of communication and delivery, we're using Slack. And we're using Slack mainly because this is where most of the internal communications happen within a business. So the business impact. So for a system something like this, there is a twofold impact. On the first side, there is a junior staff who get instant access to the company's processes, how they work, what's the certain metrics. So previously they would do something like asking the seniors, so it's a loss on their side and the senior side as well. And the other impact is that the leadership or directors, they need not dig into the documents on getting a certain answer. They just have to put in the question and they'll get instant answers. So this saves a lot of time for both of them. And okay, so how does this work? So the main concept behind how all of this works is RAG. So what is RAG? RAG stands for Retrieval-Augmented Generation. So the main idea behind this is it does not rely on trained data, whereas it generates a response based on your documents that you have provided when you have set up. So when you're asking a question, it doesn't have access to the trained data, rather only your data that you have provided, and it generates a response based on that. And the main advantage of this is it reduces hallucinations. So think of it as someone like a librarian who organizes all your book based on certain topic and the author, and whenever someone asks where so and so books exist, they have instant access to where it exists and can direct them. That's the main concept behind RAG. So this is how RAG works. So it's divided into two parts. The first one is data indexing. So this is where we'll be storing the documents in a vector database in our case. So think of this as the documents that you have in your Drive or something like that. So the first step is it will be converting it into chunks. So chunks, think of chunks like a snippet of your document. So if your document has around 2000 characters, it will be dividing it into 500 characters or so. And the next step is it will convert the chunks that you have generated into embeddings. So embeddings is something like a data structure that LLMs use, and it will be within the range of -1 to 1. And finally it will be storing it in a vector database for retrieval. And the next step is retrieval and generation. So when someone asks a question, it will be converting the question to an embedding as well. And and after that it will be querying the database. So it will match the closest value to the embeddings that you have generated. Since both of them are in a number format, it will be retrieving certain chunks that is closest to the embedding value that you have generated based on your query. So once it has generated, it will be throwing out a bunch of chunks that's related to the question, and it will be passing it to an LLM. In our case, it's OpenAI. So what this LLM does is it ranks the chunks and it will be throwing out the output which is very close to the question, and finally you will get your answer. So that's how a RAG works. So let's go ahead and build it. Okay, so first I'll be explaining you how the data flow occurs between each nodes and what each individual node does, and after that I'll be showing you how you can set it up using your own credentials. So let me go ahead and show you a run that I've performed earlier, and I'll be walking you through how data flows between each node and what the node does. So if you look into it, what this essentially does, it will fetch the document that you have passed in a Google Drive, and it will be converting it into a form of embedding, and we'll be passing it and we'll be storing it in a vector database. And the reason we have two triggers right here is because if I go ahead and go to my drive structure, we have two folders, which is company docs and the confidential. So company docs is public, anyone can have access to it, whereas confidential, only the executives and the seniors have access to it. So that's the main reason behind two triggers. So this looks for the first folder and this looks for the second folder. So once a new file is added, it will be looping over the files. So for example, if you pass in more than one file at a time, it will be looping over each file and it will be downloading the file. Once it has downloaded the file, it will be storing it in a database. So until here, the flow is going to be the same and the idea is going to be the same. The only change is in the Supabase vector store. So I'll come to it now. So if I go ahead and show you how the data flow occurs. So once a file has been created in your drive folder, it will have all this information about the file. It will have the ID, it will have the name and even the content from it. So once that is done, it will be looping over the items as I've told, and it will be downloading the file. So we'll be passing in the ID of the file that we have got right here. And we'll be passing it right here, and we'll be downloading the file. So once it's downloaded, we'll be storing it in a database. Operation mode is going to be insert documents, and the list is documents. So this is the folder name inside our Supabase. I'll be showing you how to set it up in a while, and the embedding batch size is 200. And for the query name, it's max documents, and I'll show you what that means in a while now when I'm setting up the credentials. So this has two subnodes, which is embeddings and documents. So embeddings is where we'll be converting the document content into embeddings. So for the model, we are using text embedding 3 spall, and the other one is default data loader. And this is the only node where there are changes between the two triggers that I've shown. So for the type of data, it's binary mode, it's load all input data, and the data format is automatically detect. Text splitting is simple. So the only change that is different is the metadata. So we have a metadata called access type, and this is essentially what will be differentiating the user queries. So right now, since it's from a public folder, we'll be storing the metadata and we'll be giving it a value of public, and the source will be providing in the web view link, which is how they can access it through the URL, and we'll be getting it from here as well, which is from right here. And that's all about how you're storing the data in a vector database. Now if you come to the second trigger, which is for the confidential node, if you come here, you'll see the access type we have set it up as confidential. So if you look into the vector database, so it will be tagged as confidential or public based on how we have set it up as. So that's about the first part. Now coming to the second part, which is to query the database and retrieve the answers. So this essentially starts when someone asks a question from a Slack channel, and it will be storing certain values in a variables for readability purposes. So after that, we'll be fetching the data from tables. So tables is something that n8n has added recently, where we can just store in values within n8n rather than creating an own database. So it'll essentially look for the role of the user in your company, and it'll go down two routes. So if they're a junior employee and they should not have access to the confidential documents, and the second part is, so if the role is leadership, so if they are from the leadership role, it does access the confidential documents we have stored in the database as well. And essentially the query is, so when they ask a question, it will be converting it to embeddings, and it will be passing it to this agent node. And what this agent node does is it queries the database embeddings, so it matches the embeddings and gets the most relevant answers, and finally it will be generating an answer and be passing it back to the user via Slack. So let me go ahead and show you how the data flow occurs. So first, the trigger will be creating as any event, and we have created a app inside Slack which they can text to. So it will be providing the type of the message, everything, but the only thing that's required is the content inside the text and the timestamp and the user. So once that is done, it will be saving the values that I've mentioned in a variable, and after that we'll be querying the database within ni10. So in ni10 I have created a demo table which consists of the user ID and the values of every employee within a company. And essentially what we're doing is we are passing in the user ID here and getting every other values of the employee. So since you have passed in the user ID, it matches that particular row and it will return the role and the created time. So essentially the only thing we need is role, which is junior in our case. So since it's junior, it will be going down the second route, as I've told you. So the if node is classify whether the employee is a senior to go on the first route. In our case, it's the second case, so we are going down the second route. So we'll be getting all the data from the previous nodes here. So after that, we'll be setting the message that user has created. So if you have seen, we have created it in the first edit field, but this is essentially because there's a small glitch in ni10 side that doesn't allow us to populate the value in the next node. So we are populating it again in a variable. So after that comes the agent node. So what this agent node does is we'll be passing in the user message and we'll be giving it a system prompt, which is we'll be asking it to behave as an assistant for internal purposes. So we'll say to it that you'll be getting some questions from the user and you need to call specific tools and return the most relevant answer, and if there's no relevant context found, you need to say no and you should not make up any responses. So, and you can see that it has returned the output. So if you go down, for the chat model we are using OpenAI, for the model we are using 4.1 mini, and we're also using a memory, and this is mainly because we need context on what has been discussed just before this, so that the agent has more data on what the output should be like. So the next tool is the Supabase tool. So this is the main tool out of in the AI agent. So what this essentially does is we'll be passing the document, the table that it needs to query, and we'll be giving it a description. And the main catch here is that we are passing a metadata filter. Since the question is from someone that is junior, we are passing the metadata filter as public, access type as public. And once the output has been fetched, we'll be sending it via Slack. So we'll be passing the output here, and the user that we're sending it to is gotten using the ID field of the user that we have set in the first edit field node. And for the content in the text, we are passing in the output that's generated from the AI agent node in the previous step. So what this part does is it will be replying to a thread, and this is, like I've mentioned, it's a timestamp that I've shown you in the first node, which is the trigger node. And that's all about how all of this essentially works. Now let's go ahead and I'll be showing you how you can create your own credentials and set it up for yourself. Okay, let me show you how to set up the Drive credential. So you need to click on the node, copy this redirect URL, and then you need to head over to console.cloud.google.com. You need to create a new project, create, so you need to select the project, get started. We need to give it an app name, support email, next, keep it as external, give a contact information, next, agree, continue, create. So once you're done with that, you need to go to audience, you need to add a test user, because I'll be creating save. You need to go to overview, create an auth client, web application. You need to paste in the URL that you have copied, create. So you need to copy this client secret and the client ID should be pasted right here and here, and after that you are good to go. That's all about Google Drive. And now coming to how you can set up the Supabase vector store. For this, we need to head over to Supabase. You need to create a new project and you need to remember the password. And once you have created the project, you need to head over to N8N, go to docs, click on this quick start for setting up your vector store. You need to copy this. You need to copy this text snippet and you need to head over to Supabase, go to SQL editor and paste the text snippet right here and hit run. And once you hit run, if you head over to the table editor, you'll see that the document folder has been created. So I've mentioned earlier, I told that the metadata consists the access role. So here you can see access type is public here. So this is for the first folder, and for the confidential folder, if you look into it, there's the access type as confidential, and we'll be also passing in the source of the document. So if you click it, it will be redirecting us to the actual document consisting of the information. So after that, you need to head over to N8N. You need to, once you've created the table, it appears right here and you need to click the documents file. The operation mode is going to be insert documents and the query name is match documents. And this is automatically created once you paste in the code snippet. So that's all about the Supabase node. And there's one more node that you need to set up in Supabase itself, then that is the chat memory. So for this we need to create different table, and you need not paste in a snippet for this. It will be created automatically by N8N. So for this, the credential, you need to create a new credential. You need the host, the database, user, password, everything, and the password right here. It's the password of the project that I've just created. So for these values, you need to go to your Supabase account. You need to click on connect, method, it's transaction pooler, few parameters. So you need to paste in all of this into N8N, and the password will be your project password. So there's one crucial thing that I forgot to mention in the Supabase node. For the credential here, we'll be needing the host and service role secret. So for that, you need to head over to N8N, not N8N, Supabase. You need to go to project settings. You need to go to data API, copy in the URL, and the secret will be in the API keys. So you need to create a new secret key and you should pass it here. The host, you need to pass it here, the URL, and the secret right here. And that's all about Supabase. Now coming to OpenAI, you need to head over to platforms.openai.com. You need to go to dashboard, API keys. You need to create a new API key, should paste in the secret key in N8N. And that's all about OpenAI. So you need to paste it right here, and the organizational ID is optional. That's all about OpenAI. Now coming over to Slack, you need to head over to your Slack account. You need to click on more tools and you need to click on apps. You need to head over to Slack marketplace to create an app. You need to click on build, create new app from scratch. You need to give it an app name and your workspace that you want it installed. So once you've created the app, you need to go to auth and permissions. You need to give it some scopes. So head over to bot token scopes. You need to give the set scopes, which is chat rate public, I am right, and users read. And it's crucial that if you miss any of this, it might not end up working in the way that you desire. So once you're done with that, you need to install it to YouTube, which is your workspace. And once you're done with that, it'll be giving you an auth token. You need to copy this and paste it in n8n. And there's also one more thing that you need to do. You need to go to event subscriptions. You need to enable an event, and for the webhook URL, head over to n8n. You need to go to webhook URLs. You need to copy the test URL, or if you're in production mode, copy the production URL. And it's also crucial to note that there's a small glitch on Slack side, so you need to click execute. You need to copy this and you need to paste it right here. And the thing to note is that if it's not active, it will not work. So you need to make it active before pasting the value in. And for the bot tokens, you need to select message.im, and that's necessary. And after that, you're all good to go. And that's all about Slack. And about the access token, you need to paste it right here. So that's it for the credential part. So once you have built it, it just doesn't end here. You can customize it according to your needs. So for example, you can play around with the permission. So now you have built it for public and leadership, whereas you can create other access levels like for specific departments like sales, finance, or HR. And the next implementation that you can do is you can connect it to your CRM. So you can connect it to a software like ClickUp, Asana, or whatever you're using. And using this, you can pull in real-time project status from your software. And the other implementations are you can set up alerts. So whenever something is added to a database, you can send a notification to a certain channel. You can also integrate your finance tool like QuickBooks or Stripe for budget queries. And you can also play around with the prompts. So you can modify the prompts in such a way that certain departments get certain structure of output. Like for example, so directors, they would like when they get something that's strategic or some summaries, whereas for employees, they like it when they get step-by-step instructions. So you can play around with the prompt in such a way that it satisfies their tonality. And finally, you can also implement like something like a weekly digest. So this allows you to understand what's breaking your workflow, what improvements do you need on the steps. And finally, you can also improve your documentations based on what question is being asked again and again. And yeah, so if you're a business owner and you want help becoming an AI first company, that's exactly what we do. So we help businesses become AI first using strategic consultation and implementation. So every client that we work with, we go through audit phase where we understand how their business works, find their bottlenecks where AI can make the most return on investment, and we'll give them a strategic blueprint that they can follow here on. So if that's something that you would like to look into, you can book a free introductory call with us, and the link is in the description. Anyways, hope you got value from this video. I'll see you in the next one.